Hi everyone, my name is Joe, and today we are going to be playing episode 1 of a City Skylines 2 playthrough. I think we're going to play on the map Twin Mountain here, even though it doesn't have a train connection. We're going to find a good name here, but while we're doing that, I have played City Skylines 2 before. I've made a few cities, but I don't think I've played on this map before. I think Calhoun Falls is a fine name. We're going to change this to North American. I think we're going to play on normal mode instead of easy mode. We're going to leave all this off, and I'm going to turn off the tutorials. So we're going to start the game. This is one of my first YouTube videos. I made some musical ones back in college, but this is my first gameplay video. So we've popped into the game here, and we've got this land. I'd like to zoom out and view the map a little bit to see what we're working with. I think these mountains are going to look really pretty with the northern lights at night. And I kind of have mixed feelings about this highway that runs across the lake. I think we're going to like that later in the game, but now I'm not too sure. Let's turn on our natural resources to see what we're working with. So we've got some good farmland over here and over here, and we've got not a lot along the lake, or the river, which is decent because I did want to build a lot of the buildings along there. I have a fun idea with how we can use the new quay, or keys that they added to make like a really cool waterfront neighborhood. I also have a nice block design that I want to base the city around. So we're going to use some 4-lane roads for the more through streets, and I'll just build that here. So it looks like we've already got that kind of started for us. So I am just going to start here, and we're going to build this directly off of the highway, which I don't really want to do, but that's okay. So you might be wondering why I'm making these a bit bigger than normal, and the reason for that is alleyway parking. I want to add a substantial amount of alleyway parking to this city, and I've tried that on a couple other playthroughs that I've done, and it tends to work decently well. So we're gonna go ahead and give that a shot. So the only kind of unfortunate thing about that is that on these areas it doesn't really fill in this turn with parking, but you can put a small roundabout in here and it doesn't take up any more tiles. So that is a good thing. And what we can also do is pop them down like this and like this. And even without the roundabout, it takes up the same amount of space. So I foresee a lot of that happening in this city. Personally, I'm not a huge proponent of roundabouts, just because I kind of like traffic lights. Sorry, I'm an American. But this, I think, is the basic block design that we're going to be going with in this city. And so I'm just going to plop this down all over the place. And what I want to do, this is a little bit difficult because we can't use the grid tool. So with the grid tool, you can only really go, yeah, you can't, it will kind of let us do what we want, because here, this distance is 157 yards that we would want to build this thing. So if we want to build this thing 157 by 157, it won't really let us do it. And that's unfortunate. So we're just going to have to build these manually. And we're going to try our best to keep these at perfect 90-degree angles for the entire playthrough. But I doubt that'll happen, because I have tried that before and it has not gone terribly well. We're going to stop at that river and we're going to fill the rest in with these smaller streets. So we'll have these smaller streets and then we'll have an alleyway going like this. Ironically, I suppose the alleyway is going to end up being longer than our small streets, but that's okay. And especially for this lower density area that we're going to start building right now, because we haven't unlocked any higher density stuff yet, that's kind of a future-proofing measure. Because if we decide to make a higher density area, we can do things like building a smaller alleyway and setting the buildings back from a road, or making all of the roads slightly larger, or having more space for the large ploppables that will unlock, like the big schools and whatnot. So I'm excited to see how that turns out, and I'm just going to keep building this out here. I want to do a 5x5 grid system in this, which hopefully will turn out well. And I put these here, but I actually don't want the alleys connected to this big street, but I do want them connected to all these other smaller streets. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blocks here. And so now I want to build this road out like this and make that a smaller one. I also want to try using more roundabouts on these large intersections, because something else that I'd like to do, and this is one of the reasons why I gave us our freedom to do this here, is so that we can zone some buildings not exactly tied onto this thing, right, the street. So what I would usually do is I would just paint this and it would just summon a bunch of low density commercial buildings. However, there is, debate among the community as to whether that's a good idea or not. I kind of like it being a good idea, but it will also get us to having the possibility for stroads, which people tend to disagree with. I think for low density areas, they're all right, but once you get to larger areas and once you scale that up, it can be less than ideal. But we're going to deal with that in a little bit. For now, we're going to continue building out this neighborhood. So that's what I didn't want to start happening, is this. And if people know of a good way to prevent that from happening, please let me know, because I am very tired of that happening. I like to turn off this is what I don't want to happen, right? I want to keep all of these squares very nice and uniform so that we can get a lot of land area out of our city here, our city structure. So that's going to be our 5 grid for this side. And something that I want to do when I unlock these is to put in a bunch of turning lanes into these bigger streets. And one thing that I found that was great for that is using the alleys. And so something that we could do is just pull an alley into here. In a different city that I made, I like to have some alleys going out into this location and then popping turning lanes here, mainly because this gives us another node to work with. I have played around with it before, and you can, if you don't have this road, you can start from this point on the grid and just build out the roads with turning lanes into the intersection the way you like. But it's kind of iffy, and if you have to destroy or upgrade the road, that can mess with it. So for the sake of the game, it's easier to just add in this alleyway here. So we're going to do that here. And with these, what I did in my last playthrough, which I liked, is once you unlock the road services, to get rid of this traffic light and get rid of the right turn lanes, or the left turning lane, so that people can only turn right. I thought that was effective. And especially it gives people a way to come in here and park without having to use this big road, but not so they come in here. So then we can add a different, this asymmetrical 3-lane road going like this, and we'll maybe keep this stoplight, maybe we'll make it go away, you know, when we have the ability to. Anyway, another thing that we want to do is that we want to actually bulldoze all of these small roads anyway. But as I was showing you here, we can actually have two 90-degree angles when we get to this position, and that is the thing that we don't want to happen. Here, we can also have two 90-degree angles, which is bad. We don't like that. So we did this wrong somehow. No one knows why. And we're going to pull this out of here, because that's what we were doing. And we're going to see if pulling it out of here can help us. So it doesn't help us. We still have this thing that's slightly off. So we're going to bulldoze all of this again. And we're going to rebuild it. I think this is the problem. I think this is our problem. So we're going to bulldoze that whole intersection. And we're going to come out 149 degrees here. And we're going to make sure. Okay, very good. We seem to have solved the problem. And another thing that we're going to do is we are going to do things with the road priority system. So by default, the way that the buildings are placed down is affected by the road build order, right? So I think I built this road first before building this road. So if we were to zone a bunch of this area as low density business, for example, a lot of those low density businesses would be built facing this smaller street. And in some cases that can be good, but I believe that I don't want that here. So what we will have to do is bulldoze these streets to get rid of them and reset that priority order, then place them back in. But we're going to do that after we have made the backbone of the city, or at least of this block. And this is okay, so that's going to be our block. And we will also want to do a big road going like this. And that will complete our block here. At least the backbone of it. Now I'm going to place in all the parking alleys. And I'm using the perpendicular parking alley instead of the angled parking alley because you actually get more parking spots. So if I use the angled let's just count the ones in the perpendicular parking alley and the angled parking alley side by side. So this will actually give us 38 parking spots, while this will only give us 34 per side, or 36 per side. And I believe that is mainly due to these triangles here that are created when you do the angling. So that's not a huge difference, but at scale it'll tend to add up. And while I do kind of like the way the angled parking road looks a bit better, I think we're going to stick to the perpendicular parking for at least for now. Because what we want to do with this is actually to change it. Because I said this was going to be a low density area, and what I wanted to do with this is to introduce this block structure that we're going to do, and in the real, when we start making higher density areas using row houses and the medium density, bricks, we're going to have a lot more roads that go through like this and give us a lot more parking area as part of this structure. But right now, we are first going to delete all of these so that the priority for the commercial buildings, which I want to build along that road, shifts back to that large road. And hopefully that won't mess up any of our grid spacing. And it doesn't look like it did, which is great. So we're going to build some more blocks until it faces this river. And what I want to do with this road is to pull it down here and not really turn this into a through highway, but I don't think we want to use this road connection just yet. I think we're going to leave this as our main highway connection, and we can reconnect this one to be somewhere more over here, and then we'll maybe turn this road into a highway or put a highway kind of going in this direction, because we have a lot of space going along this way. And thankfully, it looks like this is aligned with the grid, which is why I just built straight off of it. But other times what I like to do is come down here to the corner and try to place these roads as close as I can to the wall in order to kind of get the city onto the world grid. One of the things that I wish happened in City Skylines is to make a world grid, right? If they had made a world grid, that would be amazing. But there is no world grid, very unfortunately. And I want to make these 4 deep lot sizes. So I want to have 4 and then this parking alley, but I just want to use the regular roads. I am thinking about using the one-way roads, but they're the same shape, so we can upgrade to that in the future. So we'll have an alley behind each of these blocks of houses that we're going to create. And we'll connect that up to there. And this is not enough for a roundabout. Not enough space for one. So we're going to leave it like that. And I think we're always going to have these coming out into this road with 2 turning lanes coming out and 1 lane coming in. The process when you're building out these oversized city blocks tends to be kind of slow, but I like it. I like how it looks a lot better than the vanilla grids, because you're able to retain all the room that you have, or at least the area that you get for free with the street space. When you just use the vanilla block, you don't get as much area as you do with the streets. So in here, most of this is going to be low density because we are pretty much done with this, but I don't want any of the houses to face these alleys, but a lot of them are going to have road priority, so I will actually have to destroy them and then replace them. So I think what we'd like for now is to have most, if not all, of these blocks be low density business. I'm not sure about these ones right on the corners, but I think we'll leave them be for now. And we're also going to have it along this edge. Now, we got really lucky with the spacing. I didn't count this out beforehand, but we got quite lucky that these are spaced in a reasonable way. I also built this little part over here just to make this roundabout be able to line up a little bit more nicely. This one we got to line up pretty nicely in the beginning. So yeah, what we want, I believe, is business along the road here. And then I think I'd like some low density housing. I have a larger idea for this space, which is to put in some canals inside of here going up and down this area coming out from the river. So I think I'd like to change that to be low density waterfront housing. And I also quite like how the low density waterfront housing looks with all of its colors. I did a city before where I had a lot of 2x2 colors, and it looked very nice. So we're just going to paint in this whole section here. I think what I want to do for these sections is actually to put in some row houses. And I'm not sure if I also want that along these longer edges, but I believe that I do want it along these shorter edges for a couple of reasons. The first reason is that because we have these businesses along this road, the land value in these sections is going to be higher, and one of the hardest things that I have found to do in this game is to level up the low density housing. One way to get around that is to use small lot sizes, so 2x2s work quite well for that. But here I'd like to go for 4x2s or 2x4s. So I think what we want to do is we will want to not paint these in for now, so that the land value in this section still stays relatively low, and we're able to get these houses to be a bit more profitable. We haven't unlocked any education yet, but we will need to put an education and police and fire departments in here. But I believe we can do that maybe in this corner section, like in this strange corner bit we've got up here. Anyway, for our city to work, we do need a transformer station. So maybe that can go in here. It's about the right shape. It's a little weird to have it right there in that corner. But I actually think that's a kind of a good spot for it. A bit back from the road. So let's do that. Let's put a transformer here. And you see how this is snapping to those horizontal streets? That's where the road priority is starting to kick in. So that can be kind of annoying, and I wish that was able to be changed a bit more. So one thing we're going to do to fix that is we're going to put another road out there so that we can snap to it and then just pull that over. So that's another fun trick I found. And we'll need some pylons here. We could put these up in the air, but I prefer to bury them underground. It's a little bit more expensive, but I don't think it matters very much. And I like to have them going along these roads here. So we have to connect it to this pylon. I've actually found that leaving the, not building any power generation stations for the first bit of the game can help you be profitable, especially because here we don't actually have much good area for wind. The wind speed isn't high enough to produce any electricity. It would be if we were over here, but we can't build there yet. So we'll just connect this up and over. So I think our water pumping stations could kind of go right about here. So let's build out a couple more city blocks right along this riverfront, and we'll have this road kind of dead end in a T-junction, or maybe come out along the river onto this other place. But we don't need to do that yet. And I guess we have now unintentionally made a bridge. We could just landscape this a little bit, and that would not be tragic. So I think we will want to do that. I think landscaping this will just make it look a bit better. I want to keep this so that we know what we're aiming for. Set the target as that, and then to level it out a little bit. And we did go down a little bit, but not too much. I'm not quite experienced at using the slope tool, but I guess I'm getting a little bit better. Yeah, I'm not totally sure how to use the slope tool, but we'll just soften that out. Let's just flatten this back. The terrain tools are definitely a weak point for me in this game. But we'll just soften it back out. And then we won't be able to tell. And then no one will know. That's all right. Okay, well, let's try that again. We can go a little bit farther. And that, I believe this is where we wanted our road to be anyway. So that ended up working pretty good, pretty well. And we don't want it there, so we do need to extend this parking alley a bit so that we can put this road right about there. Now that slope is coming down kind of hard. And I think that's about where we want it. So let's connect up that block just to have it finished. And we don't want this road. So that's looking pretty good. And while we're at it, let's just pull this out for a bit. And we'll create another block down here. It's not quite right. I have done this wrong. This road needs to be pulled over by one. And an easy way to do that is just to click and replace. That's fun. Oh, interesting. If we don't have the roundabout there, that gives us the full corner. I actually like that a lot more. Oops. I like this a lot more, because then what we could do is zone a 6x6 building here and get a little park strip around the edges. I like this design far more. I guess notwithstanding my disagreement with roundabouts. That is another thing which make roundabouts in this game more difficult to use, is they take up that little bit of corner space that is just vital for making things look nice and square. And now we have a nice square 6x6 plot right there, which we could use for an office building, or I don't want to put an industrial building there because it will pollute the surrounding area, but a lot of the parks are 6x6. Well, they aren't, but some of them are, and you can tile things much more easily if you have this corner point. That's really the main thing. I suppose we could try to move this transformer station. We could actually move this transformer station out to here and have it along Elm Street here, if it would go. And then we could put back that parking area. I don't really know if I like that, but I think I like it a little bit more. And then we'll be able to have that connected a bit better. I'm glad I made that change. We'll have to reconnect the power, but that's okay. And the power's back up and running. Yeah, so I like this a lot more than the way we had it previously. So that's good. And now we have some more parking for this area. The parking is one of the things that I've found that gets harder as the game progresses, because as your citizens get wealthier, I think they just keep buying more cars, which I guess is realistic, but it's somewhat unfortunate. Either way, I think we're going to put in a key here. And for the key, our slope is a bit too steep. So I want to pull it along somewhere like this, and I want to try to get it up. We can only get it up to about this height, which is a little unfortunate. But we'll connect that alley to it, and we'll see how that goes. It's a little strange how we're removing some parking there. So let's use our flatten tool to pull this out. And, ooh, that doesn't look very good. We'll put the road back in and we'll see how it goes. Let's soften that up. I think the soften tool is better for creating slopes than the actual slope tool. Well, that looks pretty good. And however, our point was not to do that. Our point was to build a water pump, which we haven't really done. I'd like this to be a lot more cliff-like, it's the problem. And if I use the level terrain tool, it'll do that, but not quite how I want, I think. I think I'd really like it if this black latitude line, or elevation line, was kind of just pulled out to here. So let's maybe just try that. Let's see how that looks. Let's turn that down to 100. Let's soften this out here. So I think that this actually looks pretty decent, and I think I'd like to keep that. So let's actually destroy this section again so that we can level it out some more. And that should keep our elevation. Oops. And I'd like to soften this out over here. Let's put that back to ground level because we know it's correct. This, however, isn't quite how we'd like, so I'll have to redo that one. That'll give us a nice 6 in there. So let's pull this one out a bit more. And we'll put in another road, I believe here. And we'll extend this out just to here. And we'll take this one away. And that looks like a pretty good block. Although I believe what we've done is now counter to our point. Now we can put water. We can put that here. So that will work. All right. And I think let's put the key up here. I'd like it if that was a bit more snapped to the shoreline. That looks pretty good. Let's attach this one. That doesn't need to be a key. That can be a 2-lane road. And let's intersect that key with the 2-lane road about like that. And we'll have that. Actually, I want to destroy that one. Come in like that. And let's have this one come in there and then just go like that, which is I still don't like. There we go. And now this is kind of unfortunate what we've done, but that's all right. Because we can fix it with parking. As every good American knows, building more parking will fix everything. And this one's still a little messed up, which is all right, because what we'll do is destroy it and we'll put it back when we decide that we like it. And I think that I want this maybe to come in here, or we could go out here and then bring that in right like that. I think it might be nicer if we just take it and pull the whole road like that. Actually, I'd like a bit of a curve. There we go. That looks nice. I like that. I try not to make too many curves in this game because of, just I try to put things on a grid system here and the curves tend to not work too well with that, but this looks quite nice. And it helps us follow the river pretty well. Now, unfortunately, we can't put these on a key, so we will take a 2-lane road and we will just not snap to zoning cell length. We will just upgrade that section, and then we still won't be able to place it. So we'll destroy it, and we will rebuild it and still not be able to do that. So it looks like we'll have to do a little bit more terrain shaping and just pull that out a little bit more so we can convince our road tool to give us some zoning boxes. Here we go. And let's put that up here. And it looks like we can fit exactly 3 of them on that section. So we're not going to do that just yet, but that's very good to know. We could upgrade this, but we don't need that right now. And in fact, we'll want to decrease the budget for the water pumping station immediately. Otherwise, we won't be able to do anything fun. So it looks like people have started moving in as I've unpaused the simulation. And this looks like a 4x6 house facing the wrong way, which I don't want. So I'm going to bulldoze all of these poor people's houses who just moved in. These ones are correct because I did it right. That one's not. This one isn't, and this one isn't. So what that tells me is that we will need to bulldoze this whole street and then place it. You usually have to bulldoze and replace everything about 3 or 4 times for it to work the way you want, which is quite unfortunate, and I wish it wouldn't do that, but alas, these things happen. We've also unlocked new types of roads by leveling up. I used to really like this 4-lane angled parking road, but now I'm not too sure if I do. It's okay. I mean, or this one. I mean, it's an okay road, but I don't really like it because it gives a lot of parking on this road, which I kind of prefer to be a through street. And in fact, what I prefer to do is to just add turning lanes to these guys, like this 5-lane asymmetric road, and just plop that going into the intersection or roundabout like that. And now, unfortunately, we've created a monster, which is a 3-lane roundabout. So that's not great. Or I don't like it. But either way. And I quite like this way of doing things, where we've got the 3 lanes going in this way and then the 3 other lanes going in this way, which gives us plenty of turning lanes. I don't know how well these roundabouts will work because I don't use them very often, but hopefully they will work quite well, and we should be able to see that soon. So one thing I want to do is get rid of all this street parking. That's honestly the main thing that I like doing by using these 5-lane asymmetric roads. So we are going to temporarily add these alleys back in so that we have the control points to be able to do this. And we can bulldoze that, and it'll give us this nice bit of road, which we will then have to never touch again because doing anything to it will mess it up. Now we've done that, and one problem that I've noticed is that on this side, and also on this side, our nodes are really close together, so I don't know how useful those turning lanes will actually be. However, I think one of our goals will eventually be to make public transit available going this way up and down this road. So it's possible that I could also turn this into a 4-lane divided road and then put some tram tracks or so in the middle of the road, which we don't have unlocked yet. And I also want to use my 1 point to get the advanced road services because we will be using that a lot here. So here we can put the wide sidewalks on both the edges, or we can put it in the middle. And if you build the tram tracks on these roads, the tram stays in the middle lane. And I think that's something that we would actually like to do, because if we have a tram going down this way, or a bus, I don't really think I want it to turn. However, the problem with that is that if you have roads like this, the tram will stay in the middle, and it will get its own dedicated set of tracks in that lane, and nothing else will be able to use that lane. If instead we have a tram on this type of road, we can make these outer 2 lanes public transit lanes and upgrade them with tram tracks. So that will allow trams, buses, post vans, etc. to be able to use that lane. So that's why I tend to like this design a lot better than a design that's more like this. Now, something that's unfortunate is that on this design you can put some nice trees and such in the middle of the road, and here it's given us some bushes, but that's alright, because we can change that by coming in here to trees and putting in some oak trees. Might be nice, some adult oak trees. And they're very big and wide, so they work well, I think, in the middle of the road. but I also don't quite know how busy this road will be with the intersections. And also with the roundabout, having tram tracks isn't going to be great for going into the roundabout, because you can't use that center with the roundabout if you want the tram tracks to go straight through. You have to just have a concrete circle in the middle. So you can only use this type of roundabout. And it's independent of where the tram tracks go. So I quite like the trams. And I think we're actually going to keep it like this on these sides of the streets. So I'm going to change it all back, and I might try to cut this part out too. And because we're doing stuff like this, we could, including parking here, we could also take these pines and put them on some side of the road. What I might do actually is turn these all into one-way streets and put pines or spruce or something on one side of the road and use oak trees for these bigger roads with that strip of grass. This, I think they're a little too close together, but that's just me. And having this split here will also help the lanes line up a little bit more nicely with the roundabout, I think. And we may or may not increase the sizes of these roundabouts in the future, depending on what I feel like. So we've got a design here that I think I like. And I believe we're almost ready to start putting in the houses. So we just have one more road to fix. And if you're new to City Skylines, most of the game is just fixing your roads. So that's kind of unfortunate. So let's actually just leave that area like it is like this, and maybe we'll have like either a park or a business triangle or some funny thing in there. No one knows. And let's actually do this too to keep that grid proper. Okay. So we have our water inlet, and we'll also need our sewage outlet. We could put it here, but that's kind of unfortunate. It does want it to be on the shoreline, which is more like down here. Let's see how much it will let us get away with this. I don't know how high up these are allowed to be. I mean, you can place it when it's not on the shoreline, but it'll just, you know, dump raw sewage everywhere, which is not quite what you want usually. So let's take our 2-lane road again, our magical tool. And I don't think I want to build this too close to that. And I think I like, for over here, how this elevation looks, where this is at. So let's take out our flatten tool. And I think let's try to use this level. And let's try to terrace that. And we won't quite be able to do it, but we'll be able to get kind of close. And let's see if our sewage pump likes that as a shoreline. And it does. Because what we really want down here is our key, but as a 2-lane road. So we'll come out here and we'll connect that up. But first we're going to try to use the soften tool which didn't quite work the way I wanted it to. So we're going to re-level this back out. And we're going to re-terrace that. So this is kind of how I wanted that to look, which might be a little strange, but that's okay. So I'd like to see how far it'll let us go down with this key before it makes us turn into a 2-lane road. And it looks like it's about there. So it looks like if we connect a 2-lane road to this part, we will then be able to connect a key to up there. And that's somewhat reasonable. And it will also allow us to pull our parking road in like that without creating too much of a mess. So it's kind of unfortunate that this, when we build here, the buildings will be terraced up to that level, and that wasn't quite what I was going for, but we could also put up a park in here instead and not have to worry about it as much. Either way, let's put down the sewage outlet here. And then we should be able to put 2 more if we pull this land a little bit back. So let's just try to do that. I'm just tapping it with the lower tool, and then we want to soften it out a bit more. Back up to 100. And this looks a lot better, and it says it's not on the shoreline, but that's okay. So it'll kind of just sploosh out into the river, and that's fine. So we've got our nice-ish key here, and we haven't built any industrial areas yet. And the industrial we want to do, what we said we wanted to do at least, is to put up a bunch of row housing like this, and hopefully this will, people will move into here and they will have it facing the right way. So some of these are facing the right way, some of these are facing the wrong way, and some of these are the wrong shape of building. So we'll just bulldoze them until they figure out what the correct way is. And sometimes it takes a few attempts, but it'll do it. Because I suppose these roads are equal priority. And that one worked, and that one worked. So this is good. We also want these, well, I want these row houses to be 4 long, and I don't think we're able to put in another row house in this spot. So that's a little unfortunate that we have this small little bit here, but it will actually go away when we remove all of these roads, which I forgot to do. So I'm sorry, but I'll have to destroy all the businesses again. And where you can see where the doors are is these little gaps in the fence. Which you can really just see when you're hovering over it mostly, but you can't see it when you're not hovering over it. It's where the cars come in and out. As long as they're on this big street, that's what I want. So this guy's trying to face the alleyway, which I don't want. So I'll destroy them. And these guys are also mostly trying to face the alleyway. So I'm going to just bulldoze the alleyway, and then bulldoze them, and then put back the alleyway. Now this guy didn't get it right, but these two did. And now this person got it right, so I guess we've figured that out. And these are houses that are being built. However, this house is facing the alleyway, so we'll have to destroy that. And these houses are facing the correct street, but they're far too large. And remember, I said I wanted 2x4 houses in this section, and that's because of the property value. So what we're going to do is destroy all of the ones that aren't 2x4 houses. And we're actually going to unzone all of this. It seems that we have gotten unlucky with our numbers, and we'll have a 3x4 house on the end of each block, which I think is fine if we make that a 4x4 house on the insides of the block. Maybe that will look nice. And this is now very unfortunate because we've we miscalculated again, or we didn't miscalculate, we just didn't calculate it out, and so funny business is happening. Now I don't like this still, but I think we'll just have to let those be 3x4s, or we can make these be 3x4s, and I think maybe we want, do we want these to be 3x4s? These will, let's unzone this whole thing and just calculate this out properly. Okay, so putting a 3x3 house on this end will give us, or along this street, will give us the ability to print 2x4 houses over here. So let's try to keep that going. And then this side will need to be 3 wide houses. And now people are building houses that are the correct shape and which are facing the correct direction, which is exactly what we wanted, even though it took quite a while to build out this small part of the city. We've also unlocked some specialized industry, such as the fertile land areas. I don't quite like this fertile land area being here, so we may need to branch out and pick a spot for our special industry, our initial specialized industry, but I think we'll leave that for next time. So thank you for watching, and if you've made it this far, remember to try to stay tuned in, and we'll hopefully be making more of these. Again, my name's Joe, and thanks for watching City Skylines Episode 1.